Okay, welcome everyone to this Somatic Yin practice. So today I wanted to share a practice that can support us through moments of intense self-doubt. And I'm sharing this out of very personal experience because I think, especially if you are trying to create something, trying to build something, trying to move outside of your comfort zone, this part of us that doubts ourselves or that might be afraid of failing or not getting to where we want to be might be really, really loud. And I've noticed with myself that anytime I am growing, whenever I am moving into the direction that I actually want to move in, that this part of me that doubts whatever decision I'm making, whatever I'm sharing, whatever work I'm sharing with the world is very, very present. And instead of pushing that part of me to the side, I've realized that all it wants is to be heard. This is a part of us that wants to be supported and nurtured and welcomed. And this is where the practice of Somatic Yin comes in, because it's a very, like a deeply nourishing, healing practice that can support us in cultivating the sense of inner safety to welcome those parts of us that maybe haven't always been welcomed, maybe have been rejected by us or by others. So for today's practice, I invite you to grab whatever it is that you need to feel warm, to feel nurtured, to feel supported. I have my herbal tea. I had a heating pad before. So if you want to grab anything like that, maybe some candles, some smells, some Palo Santo, some blankets, pillows. If you have yoga blocks, you can bring those. I'm also working with a bolster. If you don't have a bolster or blocks at home, no worries. Just grab a little bit extra, a few extra pillows or blankets. And we're going to, so if you need to grab any of those, just pause the video, grab it and come back. And then we're going to find a comfortable space to start. I'm going to start seated, but you're more than welcome to lie down. So just check in with your body. What does it need today? How can we already, from this first moment, offer a sense of support to our body? And you can grab your pillows and your blankets to find this little cocoon or space of safety and softness. And before we close our eyes, so just settle in, grab everything you need. Maybe take a sip of your tea before you get started. And before we turn inwards and go on exploring our internal landscape, just take a moment to look around the room. Notice any doors that are in the space, windows. Maybe if there's a pet or a partner or a friend, you can acknowledge their presence. And the invitation here is to look for any colors or textures or items that bring you a sense of comfort and safety. Maybe there is something that's linked to a happy memory or your favorite blanket. The texture of the blanket gives you this sense of safety. And whenever you find anything like this, allow your eyes to rest on that item or color or shape. And this is already a moment to bridge the outer sense of safety with the inner sense of safety. So maybe noticing how the body is responding to what you're looking at. Maybe there's already a sigh or a yawn or a deeper breath or softening of some parts of the body. And with that established resource or anchor point, whenever you feel ready, there is no pressure, you can gently close the eyes and allow any sounds of the room or outside to enter the ears, receiving the sounds. And then noticing where the body is touching the earth. If you're seated, feeling the sit bones and the tailbone resting on the ground or on the pillow. And also feeling the thighs and the ankles and the feet touching the ground. And if you're lying down, maybe the head is resting on a pillow, the back is resting on the mat. Feeling the butt softening, the soles of the feet. Noticing how the earth, the ground, is holding your body. There's no conditions, there's no expectations. The earth is just there, holding you. Our body is being received by the ground, by the earth. Maybe the hands are resting on the legs or the belly and feeling this touch of the hands on the body, the warmth of the hands, the weight. Touching our skin, our boundary between the outside world and the inside world. And if you want, you can rub your hands either on your thighs if you're seated or on your belly if you're lying down. Very gentle rubbing, touching the body, and feeling this warmth that the hands are spreading across the surface of the body. Maybe some gentle pressure. And while we are creating this safe touch, this comforting touch, if the thighs or the belly, for whatever reason, don't feel safe, you can find another place. A place that feels more neutral, like the knees or the arms or the shoulders or the neck. It will be different for everybody and also different depending on the day that we are practicing. So while we are exploring this sense of safety, the sensation of safety and warmth inside our body, we can also find a space inside our body that is holding this sense of self-doubt. So for me, that's my belly. But for you, that can be anywhere else, maybe the heart or more towards the pelvic floor, or it can be the face or the head. Just finding this space and becoming aware of this space. And maybe one hand stays on the thigh or on the belly, and the other hand goes to the self-doubt. Just resting our hands there for a moment to connect to this part of us that needs to be acknowledged, while also being anchored into safety. And just checking in, is this a sensation that feels like pressure? Does it feel dense, tight, heavy? What qualities can you find in this place, in this sensation? We don't have to change anything. We don't have to change anything about the sensation. We don't want to push it aside. We don't want to get rid of the sensation. Just want to, very neutrally, without judgment, observe. Observe what's happening inside our inner landscape. Maybe we can send a few breaths towards the self-doubt, wherever it's present for you. Notice how the rest of the body responds. Is there some tightening or clenching? And if this happens, can we come back also to this anchor of safety? For me, that's my left knee. But it can be your thigh, your arm, your neck, your face, your heart. And then we're going to continue exploring this space. And we're going to initiate some movement from this space. So if you're lying down, you can gently come to seated. And maybe keeping a hand on this part of us that's experiencing self-doubt. And from this place, we're going to start some movement. And this can be very intuitive, very organic. So if we ask this part, so if I'm asking my belly how it wants to move and how it wants to express itself, what does the body do? So that can be circles, so that there's a gentle massage of the internal organs. This can be a seated cat-cow. And it doesn't have to make sense to the mind. Just asking the body how it wants to express very gently. Not moving too fast, not moving too quickly from one place to the other. We give our body time to feel. So this movement will look different depending on where you are moving from. So if you're moving from the belly, that will be different than if you're moving from, for example, the shoulder. And I'm already noticing my body releasing some tension. There's a sigh. There's a deepening of the breath. And we are initiating these movements with the intention of finding more support, more nourishment, not with the intention of pushing any part of us to the side or trying to reject this self-doubt. Acknowledging it as a part of us that wants to be explored. So gentle movements. For me, it's always very helpful to keep my eyes closed so that I'm connected to my internal experience and not so much to how the movement looks from the outside. Maybe through these movements we can connect deeper with the sensation, exploring the tension or the constriction. With curiosity and a sense of openness. Noticing if any emotions come to the surface, or the body wants to change movements. And then from here, we're going to move forward towards a table position, so onto our hands and knees. Taking your time, maybe grabbing a blanket to support the knees. So if the knees are sensitive, grab some support. And then here we're going to continue our exploration. So this can be maybe starting with the cat and cow movement, finding an arched spine, reaching the tailbone up to the sky, opening the heart, reaching the chin forward so we have an open throat. And then moving towards a rounded spine, so reaching the tailbone down towards the ground, the navel up towards the sky, rolling the shoulders forward and chin to chest. Continuing at your own pace. This can be the pace of your breath, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So we don't want to force our breath. We want to allow the breath to move organically. And maybe this is our anchor point, this cat and cow movement, and from there we can initiate any other organic, more circular, spiraling movements. Exploring the sensation of self-doubt inside our body. How does it want to express? It doesn't have to look at all like the way that I'm moving. If you want to be maybe like in a little ball here, that's what the body needs, and go there. Allowing any part of the experience to come to the surface. Our bodies are so intelligent, and when we connect to whatever sensations are present, there's so much wisdom to be shared. Maybe some needs that aren't being met, maybe some support that isn't there, ways that we can adjust and find more inner safety, more room for these parts of us that in the past were rejected or criticized. And then from here we're going to gently move towards an extended child's pose. So walking the knees just a little bit wider towards the edges of the mat or the blanket, and then touching the toes, and then very, very slowly bringing the knees or the hips back towards the heels. Taking your time, feeling the stretch in your groin, in the lower back, maybe around the tailbone and the sacrum. And if you have a bolster, feel free to grab it, but put it between the knees so that the belly is supported and the chest, and then the cheek. And so coming to lie on one side. And taking a moment to feel and to integrate these movements. Noticing any places that are holding resistance and tension. And asking those places what they need to be softened. Maybe they need a breath. Maybe they just need to be acknowledged. Maybe there's some other movements or expressions that need to happen. If this feels natural, we can breathe down all the way towards the pelvic floor. Without too much pressure or constraints. And resting here in the sense of support through the bolster or the earth. Notice how the body is being held. Resting in this sense of nourishment, inner nourishment through the breath. Nourishing the internal organs through movement. Nourishing the spine, the fascia, hydrating through the stretch. And resting in this sense of safety and love. Knowing that we are always held, always supported. Even this part of us that expresses doubt. It's there for a very good reason. Trying to get a seat at the table. Asking to be heard. And here we're creating space to listen. So whatever words, emotions, colors, visuals come up, let them. It is safe to feel. It is safe to allow this self-doubt to speak its mind. How can we support this part? If at any point there's a sigh or a yawn or a deep exhale or any other sound, we want to welcome them. Gently initiating the transition back into a table, but taking your time. So ever so gently lifting the head off from the bolster or the ground, moving at the pace of the body with as much tenderness and care and love as you can. Maybe walking the knees a little bit closer together. And gentle movements of the hips and the spine. A moment of integration. Notice any tender places, any sensitive places, any tightness or constriction. Tending to those places by sending the breath there, sending love and compassion and understanding. By allowing these places to express themselves in movement. Maybe some gentle stretches. Acknowledging that our body is always trying to keep us safe. She's always on our side. And then taking your time, maybe keeping the eyes closed, we're going to transition onto our back. If at any point in this transition you need to pause and feel, allow that. If you need to take a sip of your tea, if you need to take a pillow for the head, once you're lying down, we're going to bring the knees towards the chest and find this very gentle compression here in the front of the hips. And this compression creates a gentle massage to the internal organs. So maybe swaying side to side, also bringing the spine and the lower back, the sacrum, a bit closer, deeper into the earth. And maybe keeping the knees separate so that we have a little bit more space to move organically. So maybe the knees want to make circles or half circles, or there's any other expression. Those are very welcome. And then we're going to bring the feet onto the ground. And we're going to open the knees to the side. So I like to use a bolster as support to make it a little bit more restorative. And we're going to bring the soles of the feet together. And before we come to stillness, maybe find some movements in the hip joints, in the pelvis. Maybe you want to place your hands onto the hip creases or onto the pelvis between the pubic bone and the navel to bring some more warmth to these places. Checking in with if you have a cycle, with where you are in your cycle. Maybe your womb space could use some extra warmth and nourishment as well. And always feel free to use as many blankets as you want, because this sense of warmth and heat can really support us in creating this sense of safety. So I notice that my feet are a little bit cold, so I'm just going to grab this blanket, my favorite blanket, because it's very heavy and big. and then coming back. If you don't have a bolster, you can always use pillows on either sides of the knees. Just make sure you're comfortable, and then either arms next to the body, or maybe resting somewhere on the belly, or on this, for me, was the belly, the place where I was experiencing the self-doubt, maybe connecting back to that place. One hand there, one hand on a space that feels safe and nourishing. And there's no need to force the body to soften and relax. That will happen in its own time, organically. Noticing the breath, how the breath is moving the body, moving the organs, moving the lungs, creating a gentle massage in the heart space whenever we inhale. The lungs touching the heart touching the liver. Noticing the thoughts that arise. What is our body trying to communicate? Notice the sensations that come to the surface. What does the body want us to feel? Whenever any emotion or sensation becomes too overwhelming, come back to a place that feels more neutral or safe, the place that we established at the beginning of the practice, by bringing your awareness or your hands there. Knowing that there is a part inside of you that feels safe. Even though sometimes it's hard to connect to that internal safety. And very slowly we can start to expand that part. And now Toulouse is eating her food. If you want to deepen the breath, you can try to send it a bit more towards the pelvic floor, towards our roots. And slowly we're going to initiate the transition, starting with the knees, bring them back to center. We're going to keep the feet on the ground. We're going to rest our arms next to the body, palms facing up. And we're going to try to keep our body quite heavy. And we're going to create some gentle shaking or rocking in the body by pressing the feet in the ground, so the hips will stay down, but the feet will push in the ground, which will create a tilt in the pelvis, which will create the chin moving up. And then when we release this pushing, the hips come back and then chin comes back down. And so when we make this movement faster, there is this shaking happening of the whole upper body. Massage of the sacrum, massage of the cranium, the back of the head, massage of the spine. And there's very gentle releasing of any contraction in the pelvis. If any sounds come out, welcome them. Maybe 30 more seconds. And eventually, slowly coming back to stillness and feeling the sensations. Notice any tingling or vibration. Going to bring the knees closer to the chest. And then come to lie on your side. Maybe bringing the bolster with you or the pillows so that they can rest between the knees. Resting here in a fetal pose, bringing everything close together. Finding some length in the spine. And tailbone reaching down. And notice how, again, in this pose, the earth is supporting you in a different way. How the organs are drawn down towards the earth. How the breath maybe moves more down towards the lung that is touching the ground. And from there, moving up. Noticing any places of tension and constriction. Whenever you feel ready, start the transition back towards a seated pose, towards a seated position, keeping the body heavy. If you like the weight of the pillow or the bolster on the thighs, you can keep it there. Maybe some gentle pressure against the belly creates a sense of safety. Noticing any shifts. And then from here we're going to bring the hands together in front of the heart, and we're going to rub the palms, creating some heat. Rubbing until you feel this change in temperature between the hands. And then we're going to place our hands on our self-doubt. So for me, again, that's my belly, placing my hands there. And infusing this part of us with as much love and compassion and warmth and understanding as we would give to others. Receiving this warmth. Receiving this love. Knowing that you always have your own support, that you're always held, and whatever is happening in your inner or outer reality is happening for moving you further along your own path. Every experience, internal or external, comes with wisdom, insights, lessons, and an expansion of love. Bringing the hands together once again. This time, placing the hands in front of the eyes, covering the eyes with the hands, transferring the heat onto the face, opening the eyes into the hands and letting the light back in. And then very gently bringing the hands back down. I hope you were able to get out of this practice what you needed today. Thank you so much for joining me, for taking the time to feel and nourish yourself and rest. And know that you can always come back to this experience, whether it's in this practice or whatever sense of internal safety you just created or expanded for yourself. And that whatever this self-doubt is trying to tell you, there is so much wisdom. There's parts of us that just need to be seen. I think that's it. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you in another practice.